You re-standing in the dead center of the Mojave Desert, the 110-degree heat, baking the cracked dirt beneath your boots. In your shaking hands you re-gripping a torn, faded neon safety vest. There's zero shade out here. No shadows to hide in, just you, the blinding sun, and the sickening reality of what you've become. That cheap neon fabric used to mean something. It meant you were the sharpest customs X-ray operator on the entire East Coast. The guy who caught the anomalies. The system's last line of defense. Now, it just feels like the shed skin of a coward. People tell you that if you launder dirty money long enough, it comes out clean. That's bullshit. You can scrub a $100 bill until your knuckles bleed, but you will still smell the heavy, metallic stench of rust and copper on the cash you swore to God was victimless. This is your story, and the most terrifying part isn't how you ended up rotting in this wasteland. It's how it started 6 months ago. Freezing rain, the graveyard shift at the commercial docks. It didn't start with a shootout or some grand criminal conspiracy. It started with a single silent mouse click, a 10-second choice you desperately, pathetically convinced yourself would make you a hero. 6 months ago, you were 2,000 miles away from this baking sand. You're reworking the graveyard shift at the busiest commercial port on the eastern seaboard. The wind off the Atlantic is bone-chilling. You spend 12 hours a day staring at monitors, scanning thousands of stacked steel shipping containers in the freezing rain. You're the golden boy of the X-ray division. You catch the anomalies. You enforce the rules. But being the model employee on the docks doesn't stop the bleeding at home. You punch out, drive back to a suffocatingly quiet house, and fight a war nobody else sees. Your boy is 7. Severe autism. The specialized behavioral therapy he needs just to learn how to string a sentence together. 12 grand out of pocket. Your insurance company just stamped denied on your claim. Again, you done talk about it. Your wife doesn't say a word either. But you see the raw, paralyzing terror in her eyes on Tuesday. The bank drops the third foreclosure notice on your doorstep. You open your banking app. $314 to your name. Hollywood feeds you this lie. That corruption is born from some loud, violent greed. That criminals have some grand master plan. Bullshit. The most dangerous kind of evil doesn't start with a shootout in a dark alley. It starts at a cheap Formica kitchen table at 200 in the morning, under a buzzing fluorescent bulb. It starts with a drowning father, doing the math. 12 grand for the clinic. 4 grand to keep the bank from taking the roof over your head. $314 in checking. You aren't plotting to tear down the system. You just want your kid to look you in the eye and say your name. But the math is broken. It will never work. That's exactly when Russo slides into your life. Russo is a customs broker. He drives a slick German sedan, wears custom-tailored suits, and somehow knows the first names of every security guard on the payroll. He catches you in the break room at 3 a.m. He doesn't look like a cartel boss. He looks like a Fortune 500 VP. He buys the bitter vending machine coffee. He asks how your boy is doing. He knows. They always know. The underground doesn't recruit psychopaths to do their heavy lifting. Monsters are unpredictable. They look for good, honest men who are quietly drowning. They don't buy your malice. They buy your desperation. Russo doesn't waste breath. He slides a folded paper napkin across the scratched table. There is a single container number written on it. He doesn't ask you to steal a damn thing. He doesn't ask you to pull a trigger. All he wants is a keystroke. When that exact steel box rolls through your X-ray lane, the system is going to throw a red flag. He wants you to manually override the code. Clear the error. 10 seconds of looking the other way. The payout, 15 grand. Cold, untraceable cash. You stare at the napkin. Your academy training is screaming at you to stand up. Walk straight to the supervisor's office and burn this guy. But 15 grand saves your house. 15 grand saves your son. Russo tells you it's just high-end consumer electronics. Tech companies dodging import tariffs. Nobody gets hurt. A victimless crime. You nod. You pocket the napkin. And just like that, the math finally works. The first time. Takes exactly 10 seconds. A few keystrokes. You override the error code on the monitor. The screen flashes a sterile, bright green. Outside in the freezing rain, that massive steel container rumbles right through the gates. You sit there in the dark booth, sweating through your uniform. You wait for the sirens to wail. You wait for the crushing, suffocating weight of guilt to drop on your chest. Neither comes. 2 days later, Russo catches you in the employee parking lot. He doesn't say a single word. He just passes you a tightly rolled up newspaper. It feels unnaturally heavy in your grip. Inside, $15,000. In used hundreds. You drive straight to the clinic. You slam that cash on the counter and buy 6 months of your son's therapy. Up front, walking back to your beat-up sedan, you feel this massive, crushing anchor lift off your chest. You take your first real Breath in a year. Russo sold you a story, just consumer electronics. Tech giants dodging import taxes. You tell yourself you didn't pull a trigger. You didn't push any poison, you just blinked for 10 seconds. You sell yourself the lie that this rolled-up newspaper is a victimless crime. Just a harmless glitch in a system that's already rigged. But dirty money doesn't just spawn out of thin air, it's paid in blood, in zip codes you'll never step foot in. That container you just ghosted through the gates carries pure exploitation. When your kid finally speaks a full, it is priceless, but you refuse to look in the mirror and ask how many other kids had to scream to pay for that breakthrough. You get to play the hero dad by enabling the exact same monsters who destroy other families. You push the violence onto someone else, keeping your own hands perfectly clean. Then comes week 3, job number 2. Then a third. The newspaper gets thicker. 20 grand 30! But the paperwork changes. You've been reading cargo manifests for a decade. You see the gross weights. You see the roading. You know exactly what that heavy, dense cargo from Panama shell companies means. You aren't moving laptops anymore, you're removing military-grade hardware. Explosives! You are holding the front door wide open for an underground syndicate. You know exactly what they were going to do with it. But the cash is so damn good, the bank stopped calling. And you are in way too deep. Shrinks have a fancy word for how you survive this. Compartmentalization. But down on the docks, we just call it boxing up your brain. You shove the good dad into one box, the guy who kisses his kid goodnight and does whatever it takes to protect his house. You shove the dirty operator clearing paths for terrorists into another. You lock them both, and pray to God those 2 boxes never touch. You convince yourself that filthy money magically washes clean. The second it pays a medical bill, you go to the bathroom, splash cold water on your face. You look at your reflection in the mirror. No horns, no mark of the beast, you still look exactly like a good man, and that is the most terrifying part of all. The system is flawless, until it hits a brick wall named Carter, night shift captain. 30 years breathing diesel and salt air on the docks. He is the man who hired you, the man who trained you. When you made the X-ray division, he gave you his old, beat-up retirement watch. He talks about accountability like it's oxygen, it's what keeps him alive. Carter doesn't miss shit! He notices the Lane 4 scanner rebooting for exactly 12 seconds last Thursday. He catches a shipping manifest from a Panama shell company, where the axle weight does perfectly match the sensor readout. He mentions it casually, over a styrofoam cup of terrible breakroom coffee. Just a puzzle he's thinking through out loud. You play it cool, blame the aging servers, and he lets it go. But you see his eyes working, he's filing it away. At first, you think he's just an old man obsessed with the rulebook. But you forgot the real reason Carter digs so deep. 10 years ago, at Terminal B they found a refrigerated container sitting dead. The cooling system was shut off from the outside for 3 days. The syndicate took their cut and locked the steel doors on 12 people. No survivors. Carter was the one who broke the seal. You still remember his hollow, pale face under the harsh halogen floods. He personally carried a 5-year-old girl out of that steel tom. She had on little, light-up sneakers. With every agonizing step Carter took across the wet concrete, those shoes flashed on the lifeless body. Red and blue, meaningless bursts of light in the freezing rain. They were the exact same shoes his own daughter wore at home. Carter doesn't cross-reference manifests to play the hero. He does it because he can never unsee those flashing lights. He is terrified of missing something. He refuses to let another steel box become a coffin, and here you are, his star pupil, getting paid under the table to hold the gates wide open for the exact same monsters who threw away the key that night. 2 weeks later, the paranoia bites. Carter pulls you into the main server room. He found a backdoor code in the diagnostic logs, someone's manually overriding the alarms. He doesn't suspect you. That's the knife twisting in your gut. He trusts you implicitly. He asks you to help track the IP address. You sit shoulder to shoulder with the man who built your career. The server fans scream like a frantic heartbeat. He slides his reading glasses on, spreading printed logs across the desk. He taught you how to read these codes. He taught you how to hunt anomalies. Now you use his own playbook to stab him in the back. Keystroke. Backend access. You wait for him to look down at the paper, delete the override scripts, wipe the timestamps. You are ghosting your own digital tracks. Right to his face. 10 seconds, done. You point at the screen. You feed him some boring, technical bullshit about a phantom glitch, a corrupted firmware update from the manufacturer. You're getting dangerously good at lying. Carter looks at the monitor, looks at you, exhales a massive, heavy sigh of relief. He wants to believe it's just a machine error. So he does, because that's what mentors do. They trust their people. He pats your shoulder, smiles, and walks back out. You stumble into the bathroom and puke your guts out in the porcelain sink. You survive the night. But you don't know it yet. That blind trust is about to get him killed. Carter doesn't drop it. He's a dog with a bone. The phantom glitch wasn't enough. He keeps digging into the terminal archives, asking the wrong questions to the port authority. Russo's crew doesn't issue warnings, they don't negotiate. Permanent solutions. Tuesday, 200 am. Freezing rain, a massive commercial truck blows a red light, and T-bones Carter's sedan just 2 miles from his house. The police report calls it a tragic hit and run on wet pavement. You know, it was a straight-up execution. The news hits you like a bat to the ribs. You check the time of the crash. Exactly 1 hour. After Carter pulled you aside and said he was escalating his findings to the federal investigators. You didn't drive that truck. You didn't order the hit, but you handed them the keys to the front gate. You sit in your dark living room, waiting for the fallout, waiting for the feds to kick your door off the hinges, waiting for Russo's cleaners to show up and tie up loose ends. You brace for the punishment. But the universe has a much sicker sense of humor. 3 days later, a knock on the front door, not the feds. It's Carter's kid, 20 years old, soaking wet, eyes red and swollen. You let him in. He collapses onto your living room couch, the exact same cut you paid off with Russo's dirty cash. He breaks down, tells you he is applying to the police academy, wants to be exactly the kind of man his father was. Then he looks up. He asks if you his dad's best friend. His favorite student would write the letter of recommendation. You swallow the bile rising in your throat. You say, yes, you think this is it. Absolute rock bottom. You read dead wrong. He grabs your hand, looks you dead in the eye, and asks you to deliver the eulogy. Friday morning, the church is packed, a sea of uniforms. Honest cops and dock workers who spent 30 years holding the line. You put on your only cheap black suit. You walk up those wooden steps to the podium, legs feeling like lead. You look down at the front row. You see the widow. You see the son. You hold a trembling piece of paper. You lean into the microphone. You speak about Carter's unmatched integrity, his unyielding dedication to the truth. You tell a room full of weeping people how much he meant to you. You stand up there, a murderer, wrapped tightly in the skin of a grieving friend. You get gentle, heartbroken nods of sympathy from the very people you just betrayed. Every single word feels like swallowing crushed glass. You realize in that exact moment that hell isn't some fiery pit below the earth. Hell is standing on this podium, surrounded by love and respect you done deserve, knowing exactly what kind of monster you really are. After the funeral, the last remaining piece of your soul finally shatters. You lock yourself in the master bathroom, sinking down to the freezing tile floor. Through the thin wooden door, you hear your wife sobbing. She asks you why the world always punishes good men like Carter. You want to scream! You want to punch the glass! You want to tell her, the world didn't punish him, you did. You want to confess that Carter's blood is permanently soaked into the therapy bills you just paid off. You want to vomit the truth out, just so the suffocating weight on your chest will finally stop. But your throat is paralyzed, ultimate cowardice. You drag yourself up to the sink. You look in the mirror. The guy staring back still looks like a decent father. No horns, no mark of the devil, just an exhausted, hollow face. That's when it hits you. A federal penitentiary isn't the cruelest sentence. In a cell, at least you can pay your debt. The cruelest sentence is this: playing the devastated best friend, carrying this rotten confession to the grave. Because telling the truth now wouldn't buy you redemption. It would just be the final, brutal knife in the back of Carter's grieving family. 2 weeks later, the feds finally show. They don't kick down your door like in the movies. 2 agents in cheap, off-the-rack suits catch you walking to your car in the employee lot. They dug deep into the terminal archives. They tracked Russo's digital footprints. They offer you a simple, cold choice: 20 years in a maximum security cage. Or you wear a wire. You choose the wire. Because cowards always choose to survive. You meet Russo at a greasy diner. You sit across from him, sweating through your shirt, recording 40 minutes of audio. The feds raid the port. Russo goes down hard. 32 members of the syndicate get hit with a sweeping federal indictment, and you cease to exist. Witness protection relocates your family to a blistering, sun-baked town in the Mojave Desert. A single-story stucco box with a dying lawn. Your name is gone. Your career is erased. Your wife knows about the wire now. She knows about the corruption. She doesn't scream. She doesn't throw plates. She just looks at you with a silent, absolute disgust. She sleeps on the far edge of the mattress, an entire ocean of distance between you. You spend your days staring out the living room window at the blinding desert sun. There are no steel bars on your windows. There are no armed guards at your door. But make no mistake, you are locked inside the smallest, darkest cell imaginable. trapped inside your own mind. Serving a life sentence you wrote, for yourself. You sit on the back porch. The Mojave sun is blinding, baking the cracked dirt and reflecting off the dead grass. You run the sequence backward in your head. You do this 100 times a day, hunting for the exact moment you could have hit the brakes. If you had just told Carter the truth in the server room. If you had just thrown the wire in the trash. If you had just said no to the second job. You map out all the alternate endings. It doesn't help, because the terrifying truth is, you didn't have a choice during the fall. The only choice you ever actually made, the only single moment you had any real control, was 6 months ago. In that freezing parking lot, when Russo held out a rolled-up newspaper, and you reached out your hand to take it. Every single decision after that wasn't a choice. It was just gravity, dominoes falling, one crashing into the next. Inevitable and completely unstoppable once the first one tips over. You won the war you set out to fight. The math finally worked out. Your son got his specialized therapy. He speaks in full sentences now, he's thriving, but he introduces himself to his new friends using a fake name. The bank didn't foreclose on your mortgage. You kept the house. But you lost your home forever. Your clearance is gone. Your mentor is dead. The good man you used to be died the second you cleared that first error code. What's left is just the ghost of a father, hiding in the desert. People watch true crime documentaries from their comfortable couches, and like to think they would never cross that line. They think corruption is some loud, violent explosion of greed. It isn't. It is quiet. It is a whisper in the dark. When you are completely out of options, and the people you love are drowning, you will spend the rest of your life under this burning sun, deciding if you can live with what you did, and hoping that the people listening to this never have to find out what their own soul costs when their back is truly against the wall, because you already know the exact price.